PA. Cool. We got folks from all over. It's awesome. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. So I am Jamaica Bryant. I am the Director of Content and Community here at Codesmith. And I'm super excited to have this talk with Chris and Julia. So we are talking today in our Fireside chat, as you can see from my background. We are going to be talking about self-learning to start your coding career. So there are a lot of ways to get into software engineering. Obviously, Codesmith is one way through the immersive programs that we have, the prep programs that we have, et cetera. But I just love that there are so many different ways for people to get into this this industry. And so today, Chris and Julia, I'll ask them a number of questions to talk about their stories and their journeys into software engineering. So folks, if you could, Chris and Julia, if you could please introduce yourselves, let us know where you're coming in from and your company that you're with and how long you've been there.
Sure, I go ahead.
Yeah, please go.
So my name is Julia and I'm living in Vienna in Austria. And I'm working at Atos IT Solutions and Services as a front-end developer for a year now. My role there are kind of different because it depending on the project. Since we are offering services, means that I mostly like working on different projects for several months. And my first project was about mostly doing bug fixes in SCSS because we were in the end phase. And after 6 months, I switched to another project where we were until the end of 2022, the initial phase, where most likely was in the role of a technical business analyst, doing prototyping with Figma. And tomorrow will be my first day after vacation, and we are finally getting into programming, and then I will do front-end development with React.
Awesome. Wow, great. I can't wait to hear more about your whole story and how you got there and all the things that you're doing. Cool. And then Chris, if you could share who you are and where you're from, where you
Yeah, I'm Chris K. I'm Krzysztof Kłaszkowski. I'm from Poland, and so I work as a web developer at Web Reality. I work remotely, and I am a full stack developer. So do anything from planning the database to applying CSS changes, and I work in mostly in a open source Umbraco CMS platform and the .NET framework.
Sweet. That's amazing. That's great. Okay. Well, so Chris, what were you doing before you got into software engineering?
Oh, I was doing many things. I am very old. I am 40 years old. So just before I started to work as a web developer, I worked in a hospitality industry for about 15 years. Before that, I was working in a food industry for like 2 years. And I also work in a fitness industry as a supervisor and a club manager.
Wow, nice. And how about for you, Julia?
Yeah, I was studying musicology and Japanese while working part-time at the casino as a poker dealer. Yes. Like this.
I love your story. When we first talked, I was just like, say that again. That's yeah, exactly. That's so cool. Well, so then what made you make this switch into pursuing a career in software engineering?
During my Japanese studies, I had to do an internship in order to be able to finish the studies. And yeah, most of the students were able to go abroad and go to Japan and do their internship there. But I had an apartment to pay rent, and I already had a job, which I didn't want to give up. So I applied at the university itself to maintain the Japanese studies website. I didn't have anything to do with programming or a website or anything before that, but it was the only chance to do an internship. So I applied for it and I got accepted. Yeah, and that's when I fell in love with websites. I had to maintain the website, update the website with content. And after a few months, I think we had to, so a colleague and I had to do a WordPress website for a lecture because it was the 150 years relationship between Austria and Japan. And yeah, they totally get me. I mean, we had to do the website and the CSS of it and we had to meet with the professor if it fits, and a lot of meeting and changing and bug fixing. And that's when I decided after graduating, I will learn to code.
That's cool.
And I did. Yeah.
And for you, Chris, what made you switch from all those other career paths into software engineering?
I think as many as just the pandemic, and I was hit pretty hard because of the shutdown of hospitality industry. I think there was like 4 lockdowns. I cannot remember anymore. So I wasn't laid off of my work, but I was taken to take unpaid holidays. And in a span of like 10 months, I had 4 different jobs. I was working as a delivery driver. I was working in a supermarket. I was working as a night security, and I was working on the front line at the hospital, providing care to those affected. And then I decided I need a safer career that's not gonna put my whole life on hold if something like that happens again. Hopefully not. And then I was always passionate about computers. So, but somehow like programming was never on my horizon. And then I just was watching YouTube and then discovered this YouTube about React. I was like, whoa, I want to do that. So that's how it all started.
Awesome. So that's cool. So YouTube was one of the first ways that you got into like finding out about coding and some of the free resources. Can you all speak to other free resources that you used to help your to help you self-study?
Sure. I mean, so yeah, as I mentioned, it was like because I had more free time as ever before. Because if you don't know, hospitality industry is very hard. You work for 60, 70 hours a week. The most I work, I believe, was 106 hours in a 1 week. So it's a lot to work.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was YouTube I discovered, and there was like talking about React and so on. I was like, oh, I want to learn that, but I didn't know JavaScript. And for those that don't know, React is a JavaScript library. So I didn't know where to start, and I was looking for resources online, basically, or what I need to learn and how to do it. And I joined a community about React, and I create a group over there for Polish people to connect. And one of the person recommended me to try CSX, Codesmith free resource to learn JavaScript. And I tried that and I was like, wow, I love that. I attended 2 online workshops. It was like one was starting about midnight. The second one, it was the Los Angeles time. So I stayed online until like 6 a.m. my time. And I was like, wow, I really love that. So I decided like, yeah, that's what I want to learn. And that's why my experience started.
Got you. No one can ever say that you're not a hard worker, Chris. Like that. I mean, as I keep hearing your story, I'm just like, oh my goodness, like there's so much passion that you've put into it already. And you were just getting started, just getting that fire lit under you around coding. It is inspiring to hear. And Julia, for you, what free resources did you either start with or did you start kind of finding along the way?
I started, I think, like many others, with Free Code Camp, and worked through the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript stuff. But I mostly focused after that on W3 schools. I also went through all the tutorials they had on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I think it was about 1 or 2 months I did it on W3 schools. And after that, I thought at least I had profound knowledge and started to watch YouTube tutorials.
So, Chris, you were saying that somebody kind of recommended to you after you'd started building this community, someone recommended CSX to you. Can y'all talk about how you found the resources that you found? Like what if somebody's watching right now and listening to us later, you know, how did you go about deciding which tools to use, finding them, like kind of vetting them to see if they were worthwhile? How did you all make those decisions? And either one of you can answer first.
Julia, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was a hard decision because there was so much content out there. But I think after a while, I I realized which instructor I like to listen to, or who I mean, many instructors can say the same, but it doesn't, I don't know, you cannot connect with them. And I think I found it very soon which instructors I like. And when I came to Front-End Masters, after I realized they had a GitHub students collaboration, and yeah, I think that was totally it. I love all the instructors there. They are really, really great, and I watched almost everything on there regarding to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I hadn't to look for other things anymore.
Got it. And then for you, Chris?
I mean, for me, the biggest resource, it was the community that I discovered. And in the community, I met other people. And I just started to work from like the basic introduction to JavaScript and such. And then I was like, wow, I love that. And then there was like huge jump between the like beginning part and the more advanced. And it was like the training wheels were taken off. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do next. And that's the first time when I heard about this concept of the hard learning. And I believe Codesmith is all about that. So it was just, yeah, what to do next. And then first I was just basically, if I was stuck on a problem that I was solving, I was just researching it online. And then later I discovered that the best resource you can use for anything is the official documentation. And didnt is just winning a lottery because they have everything there. They have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and there's more than enough there to be proficient at those languages. So yeah, that was basic that. And then community played a huge role because as I was learning, I had questions. So I know if I'm stuck, I can reach out to someone else that is more advanced that can provide me answers. And that's actually how I learned, because I was using my mobile phone at work. Like I was reading other people's questions and I was answering them on the Slack. It's like, what's happened here? Why this code doesn't work? I was like reading, okay. And then I learned how to analyze the code inside of my head. And then I was able to provide the answer. And I believe when you need to answer a question about the concept that you thought that you know, that's when you realize I don't really understand it fully, or I need to dive deeper into the documentation, and then I can provide more valuable answer to others.
Got you. Awesome. So, okay, so you both used free resources for most of your training. Did you all ever consider going to boot camps? Did you consider taking that path? And if so, what made you decide that you wanted to really focus on self-study? Julia, if you could answer that one first, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thanks.
I considered doing a bootcamp, yes, but first it was a money question. And after studying on my own for a while, I also realized that the bootcamp I had near to me was a little bit outdated. So in 2020 they teach only React classes and not hooks, for example. And I was very active. I started to be active on Twitter, and I followed a lot of other self-taught developers, which were saying that, for example, if you're a self-taught developer, you could make it in, let's say, 1 year when starting the full amount of time. And I started to focus on what they were saying, and I realized that, for example, the bootcamp, I was looking over and over again. They promised that after 4 months, after the graduating for 4 months in the bootcamp, they guarantee a job after 6 months, or not the guarantee, but I think 75% get a job after 6 months after graduating, which was 9 months. And I thought, okay, this also people also saying that without a bootcamp, so that you're able to find a job. And I started to looking for a job after 9 or 10 months, and I also found one kind of immediately. So in the end, I'm happy, or I'm not regretting it, not doing a bootcamp, because I made it anyway. And the money is in some cases really I don't know, but I get when people feeling more safe or want to have a more structured way to do it. So it's not that I do not recommend it, but I couldn't afford it, and I don't have a great bootcamp next to me, so
Yeah.
it wasn't a question, I would say.
Yeah, got it. And how about for you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to join a bootcamp. I just couldn't afford it. It was a question of money, and then I was just decided that learning JavaScript, it became my passion. So I wanted to continue doing that. And I wasn't thinking about the end result. I wasn't thinking about landing a job and such. I was just thinking, there's so much that I need to learn. I'm just gonna focus on learning till I save enough money to join a bootcamp or do something else with it. And I was lucky enough that after I finished my self-learning phase, I was able to land a job.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about landing these jobs. So you all put a lot of effort, a lot of time. Julia, I think you said almost about a year, 9 months of self-study. Chris, were you around that same kind of time frame, 9 months to a year of self-study?
When I applied, I discovered JavaScript in January 2021.
Okay.
I applied for a job. It was in July.
Okay.
In July, I applied for a job and I started to work in October.
Okay, got it. Okay, so not quite a year, but really focused and intense kind of work, it sounds like, from both of you to kind of feel like you were ready. So can you talk to us about how prepared you felt when applying for the jobs? Did you feel like the resources that you were using were helpful enough to get you through the application process and the challenges that you faced kind of in your role now as junior developers? And Chris, you can.
So for me, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't ready for applying for a role, but I was part of the community, and the community was growing quite a lot. I'm hosting weekly study sessions for others that want to learn and how to pass the technical interview. So I was doing that, and others were saying, "Oh, Chris, are you working in the industry?" And I was like, "No." And you should start applying for jobs. And then I was new, and I'm still to LinkedIn. I was like, yeah, create a LinkedIn and use that. And then so I created my LinkedIn account, and I saw an advert looking for a job, which was a few months earlier. I didn't know any better, and I loved that they use a while loop in their advertisement. It's like, okay, that's so cool. But I didn't know yet that it was actually while loop in a different programming language. And so, yeah, I mean, I wasn't ready, but everybody was saying that I should do that. So I decided, yeah, I'm going to send my CV to a CEO, and I want to experience how the real interview looks like and what are the topics I should focus on. So in a 6 months time, I can improve and then be ready for a job. But so I applied. I only sent one CV out, and I got reply. I get an interview followed by another interview, and then I was offered a job. So I was super lucky.
Yeah.
In that term, and so I didn't put much effort. But as I mentioned, it was just the community. First, it was others saying, "Chris, oh, you can contribute to open source projects." So I did to some, and I was just refactoring class-based components to function-based components. So those like easy things. At first I thought I cannot do it, but then I understand that, so I can do it. And then I applied for a job and landed at an amazing company that provided me all the support. So yeah, I say I was super lucky in that.
That's amazing. So so it was really so it was a lot, obviously, of hard work on your part. And then what I'm hearing you say is that the community support behind you kind of pushed you beyond your comfort zone to say, like, look, man, you're ready. Like you can go and like, try it out, see what comes of it, kind of a thing is what I'm hearing. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, it's a big part of it. It was relevant. So shout out to him if he's listening. And it was like, yeah, and I mean others though. So there's like not only him, but others. And it's like, Chris, yeah, apply for jobs. Yeah, Chris, are you an instructor? It's like, no. And then so it's like, maybe I can do it. And it's like, I don't know how to do it. It's just apply and see how it is. Because if you're gonna like, you can be worried and scared. It's like, I'm not gonna pass an interview. I don't have enough knowledge, enough experience. But if you don't apply, if you don't experience it, you're never gonna gain this experience. So
I think
you
it's such a great piece of advice. Absolutely. Such a great piece of advice is, go out and try it. You want to make sure that you're prepared as well as you can be, because hey, you might get the job, but you also just need to go and try it in order to get a sense, like you were saying, of if there are gaps, where are the gaps? Where can I focus my attention and my study at that point? I think that is an amazing, such a key piece of advice. And, kudos to you for taking it and running with that and actually doing it, because people can give advice, but whether or not you can do anything with it is kind of up to you. Very interesting. And Julia, how about for you? How prepared did you feel when you were applying for jobs? Did you have enough resources? Were they sufficient? How'd that go for you?
I once again followed what other self-taught developers said, mostly referring to Danny Thompson, just in case someone wants to know. It was said that after 9 months you should just start sending your CVs, and I did, even if I felt prepared or not. And I got about 7. I sent 7 CVs, and I got, I think, 5 interviews, which I think is already a lot. And from one of that was also the job I got. And luckily, I did not have to do any technical interviews, just to talk about my code, my projects, and what I did there. Yeah, so I guess I was prepared. I'm not sure. I mean, I wouldn't say I was very good at coding itself, and I knew that. And that's why I focused on other skills, like making everything, using GitHub to its full extent, like creating a thumbnail and writing a good README and be very detailed and stuff. Also writing a clean code, even if the code itself is not very advanced, but still it has a clean structure. And also focusing on being able to talk about terms like Scrum, for example. I already prepared for the Scrum exam. To just look a little bit more professional, I would say. Since I know that my coding skills weren't that good. And I guess this was also a reason why I got a job. Yeah. Focusing on other skills, I guess.
Well, I mean, in order to get a role with a company, obviously you need to be fairly well-rounded, right? Like you can't just be, you have to be able to have both the skill set of the coding, but you also have to have the professionalism, the ability to work with others, the ability to, communicate your code, like all of those things that make a great engineer. You have to kind of build those skills up to be able to be successful. But it sounds like you put a lot of time and effort into those things. Okay.
Yeah, and it's important to realize, because the web development or development in general is a huge field, and you cannot know everything. It's impossible for anyone to know everything. Yeah. So it's just what it's in a C#, we have a just-in-time compiling, and I like concept of just-in-time learning. So whenever there is a topic that you need for this project, that's only then you're gonna learn it, because with so many resources and so many materials to learn, you cannot do it all. It's impossible for human beings to learn everything. So you just basically need just to filter what is the most interesting for you and what you are passionate about, and then you can just, I want to focus on this, and then your work, it might be completely different thing, but the experience that you get from learning, you can just somehow transfer to another languages and another libraries. And it's just important to realize that you don't need to learn everything, but you just have this mindset that I can learn anything I want. So if you need that, I'm gonna learn it. And I work in Ruby on Rails project. I work in Angular. I work in jQuery, and I'm working in a C#. So it's like different fields, but it's somehow very connected, and it's just analytical thinking and just connecting the dots, basically, using documentation.
Got it.
What I want to add at this point is I totally agree with you, Chris, that maybe not just the different programming languages themselves, but also my previous work experience, which I didn't realize at that point, but I was always asked about first, the casino, and second, also Japanese studies. I mean, I think they both look very intense. So people realize that when I be able to do 3 years bachelor degrees of Japanese, which is a very hard language, I may be able to be better at coding at some point, even if I'm not that good now, for example, or also I can deal with very stressful moments in the casino times and with other people's I think that also made me kind of stand out, or did something
right.
good.
They're looking at the entirety of you and your work experience and seeing that there's potential there, and there's on the job training, and you're willing to work hard and willing to learn those kinds of it's not exactly a skill, but it's kind of a personality trait, right? Like you're willing to put the work and the time and the effort in to get to where you're trying to go on your past experience. Got it. Well, you were talking about some of the challenges in the casino, but what are some of the challenges you faced self-studying and pursuing your career? What are some of the challenges that you faced in your role, and how do you work through them? So I'd love to get a sense of like, how are you, when you were self-studying, I'm sure it was difficult to be able to find the amount of time that you needed and kind of balance it with other priorities. And can you talk a little bit about those challenges and how you worked through them?
I wouldn't say that I had challenges with time, because I also lost my job to Corona. So I had enough time to study, but I think the main challenge was am I doing the right thing, and is this going somewhere? So you don't know the outcome of it, and after putting months into it, is it really going to work out for me? But I luckily had 2 supporters on my side who always pushed me and said, you can do it. Even if you're over 30, you can still change your career. And it was like, really, can I? That really pushed me. And also, like my little brother, he's 10 years younger than me. He said, Julia, you only worked for 10 years now. You still have to go for 30 years or 40. And it was like, holy, okay, yeah, I really want to change my career. I really do that. So yeah, that really helped me just stick to it. So there was no plan B. I just have to do it, and I want to do it. But I struggled with that. If I can do it for several months, during my work, I would say I did not face any challenges. I had a really good onboarding process and a good team. Most of them are also self-taught developers, so we are kind of in the same boat. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, great. And Chris, same question over to you.
Same question. I forgot what was the question. So
okay.
challenges
the question is challenges. Yep. So as you were doing self-studying, making sure that how did you figure out, balancing time and effort and all those kinds of things, but also now that you're in your work, have there been any challenges that have come up, and how have you overcome them?
When it comes to challenges, everything is a challenge. I mean, time is the most important resources that we have. And we need to learn how to use it smartly. And I'm not great at it. I give advice to everyone, but I'm often too stubborn, and I'm thinking I'm gonna figure it out. And then I waste 1 hour that if I reach out to someone else that could provide me the answer, but no, I want to figure it out myself. And I mean, you learn a lot by that, but you also waste a lot of time in that. So as I mentioned earlier, it's like important to find a community or someone that you can reach out and ask questions. And then at work, we have rule if you are stuck on something for 15, 20 minutes, send a message on Slack to others so they might be able to answer it. And I was like, no, I don't do it often enough. But yeah, this is a challenge, being like too ambitious and too stubborn. But yeah, that's pretty much. At work, I have a great team, so it wasn't a problem. I mean, I had to learn completely new language, and they provided me guidance and resources to use. And like in 1 week, I mean, onboarding process is a lengthy process because you get new PC, laptop, you need to set up all the security things, password, and it just feels like it takes ages. Then you have meeting with someone else from the team, design team, and blah, blah, blah. And it just goes like, I believe it was like 1 week or maybe 2 weeks just to be introduced to everyone in the company, have like half an hour Zoom meeting with them and such. And yeah, so that one aspect. But then they provided me resources to learn. And it was like, yeah, I was learning C#, and I was like able to ask them questions, and then they started to provide me small projects to work on. So for first 2 months, I had basically the only thing I was doing, it was learning. I was transferring my JavaScript skills into C#, and I started in October, and it was in January when I was hit. Chris, this is your project. It goes live, and I had to just apply a small change to a live website, but it was super learning. What I forgot what I also wanted to say. Opportunity, super learning opportunity for me and such. So yeah, so everything was a challenge, but at the same time, nothing was a challenge because I knew there are others that I can count on.
Yeah. I meant to ask you all this earlier. What were the languages or language? I think it kind of peppered in here, but just for clarity, which languages did you self-study and which ones are you currently using? I know you've spoken to that a little bit, but I'm going to compress it all into one. Julia, would you share with us which one or ones you studied and what you're using now?
Yep. In the beginning, I wanted to study Python or Java because I thought these were the real programming languages and were cool. But I soon had to realize that it would take me way longer to do it. It was really hard for me. And after doing research, people said that you maybe should start with front-end development. It would be the easiest part. And that's why I started with front-end development. And after some while, I started to focusing on React because there was a program called the Collab Lab. It's a non-profit organization where you can apply for working in a team for developers. It's a mentoring program and totally for free, who supports early career developers to work in a real environment, developing an application with React. And so you have to know a little bit of React, and that's why I started to learn React, because I really wanted to get into the program, and I got into the program, which also helped me, I think, landing a job, because I could talk a lot about the whole program itself and working in a team. It was an African-European team, so I could prove that I am at least able to talk in English. Before that, I barely talk English, but it improved. And had a great project. It was with React and Firebase, so there was a lot to talk about. And I think that was the main reason I chose React. After that, I realized that in Austria, there are no many React positions. And I was lucky that my boss said, yeah, he sees that my interest in programming languages, and that I'm sure that I'm willing to learn other programming languages and I'm capable of. And I said, of course. So I got the job anyways. But yeah, maybe you should do research before that where you want to work, if the programming language is if there are jobs for this programming language.
Yeah. Got it. And how about for you, Chris? Where did you start, and where did you what are you working with now?
So yeah, I started learning JavaScript, and besides learning JavaScript, after I learned basic of JavaScript, I started to do simpler React projects. And then when I started to work, I got to work with the C#. So basically, at first, it was just reading documentation, and Microsoft provides a C# documentation that you can do courses there as well, just introductory to a C#, the syntax and such. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I believe that the advert I showed, it was in a C#, but I didn't realize it before because they were using a while loop, and there's a while loop in C#, there's while loop in JavaScript. So the syntax is very similar, using the curly braces and such. And it was just, I know how to iterate over the list in JavaScript or an array, and then it's just going to be exactly the same in another language. So you're going to have some data, some list, and you're going to have to iterate over it. And it's just, I guess it comes later, just you learn the syntax that it's needed, and you apply the same concept to other languages. And so it's just, I mean, there are lots of differences, but if you follow documentation, you can spot them and apply them on a go.
Got it. So there's a question here that says, what languages does Julia use or learn now? So you are going to be going into working with languages going forward, right? Like in the new role that you're starting tomorrow. So what language will you be learning and using there?
I will finally using React.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Techie Meki, for the question. And for everybody else who's listening, I think it was posted in the comments. We're going to be doing FAQs pretty soon. So, or it's not FAQs, but Q&A pretty soon. So if you have any questions, do drop them in the chat. So Chris and Julia, I'd love to get your perspective on kind of your final thoughts. Like, for folks who want to be in your shoes, who are maybe starting to self-study, what are some of the benefits of self-studying, and are there any other free resources that you wish were available?
There are too many resources. There are too many. There's like, we are bombarded from all the sides with the courses and resources. And I mean, that's great. But as I mentioned earlier, we cannot learn everything. So just focus on what you are passionate about and try to develop into this direction. And you might want to try different online courses. Like YouTube is great for anything, just to get a glimpse and see if it stirs your interest. And then once you know what interests you, just focus on this. And the language or the technology that you learn, I would say, is it's important, but is not as much important as you might think. Because I believe that your employee is going to look for a passion, because the technology changes quickly. What was how we did things 2 years ago, it's different how we do things now, and it's gonna be different in 3 years from now. So you cannot just hard code things in your brain and keep it not changing. It's gonna develop. So the best thing is just to learn how to learn and use official documentation, because more often than not, it gives you the best source of information.
I wrote it down. You have to, you can't hard code things in your brain. I love it. I love it. So how about for you, Julia? What were some of the benefits of self-studying for you? And, are there any other resources that you wish were available while you were?
When it comes to resources, I cannot think of one. I was pretty happy about all the resources I got out there. And I think for me personally, the most benefits were that by self-studying and not joining a bootcamp, for example, which would be more like a school, I guess, I can show more of like how self-organized I am, or how I'm able to do my own time management. And also, I think the greatest benefit of all is that I know I can achieve the things I want to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Awesome. Thank you. So for folks who are kind of in a similar path of yours to yourselves, maybe choosing to self-study, what advice would you give those folks?
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Never give up. Give yourself time. You can do this if you really want to, and yeah, don't give up.
Okay. And how about for you?
Set small goals. I mean, I set myself a goal. I said study half an hour every day at the beginning. Sometimes it was more, sometimes it was less. I believe it was like in the span of the week, it was 10, 15 hours in a week. And it's like set small goals and try to achieve them. And find a community. Find a community that's gonna keep you accountable and it's gonna motivate you to learn. And find a community that you feel like you belong to, that like community basically of you, others copies of you that you can talk with and you can ask questions. And yeah.
Great, thank you. Can I ask, it is not on the question list, but how have your lives changed since becoming junior developers? Is there anything that you can share with us that you can say, like, you know, my life is really just fully changed in this way? Is there anything that you can speak to that jumps out to you?
Yeah, remote work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I start work at 10 a.m. I can wake up 5 to 10 and just send a message on Slack. I'm ready. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely life changing in that sense, and it gives you this freedom so that I mean, you have some task that you need to accomplish, but if you're gonna do it in the evening, it's fine. If you need 2 hours break, it's fine. And if you want to go, I don't know, to the doctor or go with your family and do something, you are able to do it. Because the time is not as much an issue anymore. And as I mentioned earlier, you just treat time as the most precious resource you have.
Mm-hmm. And how about for you, Julia?
I totally agree with that. For me, in addition, I would say it depending on why you want to become a developer is, so when you do it for the money, for example, or for all the reasons Chris was saying, then it's good. But for me personally, I could actually never imagine working 40 hours a week in a job I don't care about. I mean, the casino, for example, it was fun. But yeah, we had to close anyway. And doing just an assistant or typical, an assistant position, it was, I'm doing it 40 hours per week because I started one before Corona started, and then I laid up. I could never imagine doing that 40 hours. And I mean, you have to work to earn money, but with programming, everything changed. So I was kind of afraid, what should I do the rest of my life with work? I mean, you spend so much time working, so you should do something you really like. And this pressure, I would say, really is gone away. It's gone, was gone away after finding it.
Yeah, to take that stress off your shoulders. That is life-changing. My last question for y'all, and then we'll go to the Q&A, is where do y'all think your careers will go next? Do you have any big goals to start the new year? And since you're unmuted, Julia, I'll go with you first, if that's all right.
Yep. My big goal is to get more into accessibility. I already started to learn more about accessibility the last few months, and I also write a lot about it on the DevTio community. I also did an exam to become a certified accessibility specialist, but it's also more general. Now I want to get deeper into it in the web accessibility specialized, and my company provides resources to do the exams. And yes, in the future, I want to be an accessibility developer.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, congratulations and good luck with that.
Thanks.
How about for you, Chris?
Yeah, accessibility, very important and often overlooked aspect of web development. And no big goals for now. I just want to progress further, learn more, and I'm passionate about JavaScript, TypeScript, and such. So maybe something in that land, but not specific goals yet. And I like to share the knowledge that I have with others. So maybe some way to combine those two, but we're gonna see.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you both, and congratulations and good luck with that. Okay, so we have from Jessica, one of the hardest things about self-studying is deciding what to study. And often a student jumps around too much. How did you stay focused and know what to study next? Julia?
Yep. I did not face any problems with that because I had a clear goal in mind. I wanted to join the Collab Lab, the program, and therefore I just stuck with React, and I really liked it. So I had to start with Angular in my company in the beginning, and I really didn't like it. So yeah, React it is. There's nothing else I want to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, this hard to decide, but I would just choose one thing and try to stick with it till the end. I mean, till the end, till you have some kind of minimum viable product, or till you are happy that what you achieved, and only then switch to other part. No, I wouldn't switch languages. Choose one and focus on this, but you might switch. Try different networks, three different libraries or frameworks, and see what you are more passionate about.
And so, but as you're thinking about, like, if you're saying, I'm going to learn JavaScript, for example, how did you decide in what order to kind of think through and learn the different aspects of that language? So how did you schedule that out for yourself or plan that out for yourself? Is there a place that you went or used that kind of helped lay it out for you, that made it easier for you to kind of review and be like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that?
I mean, so I mentioned for me it was CSX Codesmith, and that was a great introduction to JavaScript. And then by doing that, I learned how to utilize documentation on MDN. And I recommend to everyone devdocs.io, and good resources as well. That was before MDN had a dark mode. One of the reasons I started to use it. And yeah, and on MDN you have courses, and then I mean, for me, it was just discovering channel on YouTube, basically, like the topic that was interesting to me, and just following it through.
Got you. Okay, cool. And then Inez asks, how much time did you set aside to self-learn each day or week? And confirming that it was a year or so later that you felt ready enough to apply for a job. So Julia, how much time did you set aside? Because I know, Chris, you said you tried to do 30 minutes a day, right?
Yeah, it's to start off. And I mean, I always wanted to attend an online workshop event. Sorry, Julia, because I believe you were supposed to answer. And so the event was for about like 3 hours, 3.5. And then on a weekend, I would do more. But yeah, I set aside for myself like half an hour JavaScript, and maybe if I have time, half an hour CSS and HTML.
Got you. Thank you. And sorry, yeah, Julia, I'm sorry I jumped.
No worries. I would say, I mean, I didn't have a job at the time, so I could fully commit myself to coding. And I spent, I would say, about 5 hours per day. But of course, it's not only coding, it's researching, Googling, reading some stuff, watching videos. So it's all combined in the 5 hours. And I did it for 9 or 10 months before I applied for jobs. And I started my first job also in October
Mhm.
21, and it was after 1 year.
Got it. Thank you. And did you build a portfolio for your resume on your own? And I know, Julia, you were saying you did some of that through the program, but did you also build it on your own? And Chris, that'll go to you too after Julia.
I had one project, which was with the program, and I had another project, which I did for, it was the hash node, I forgot the word, the coding thing for 1 month where I could have win a prize. A hackathon, sorry.
Hackathon? Okay, yeah, okay, got it. Yep.
I
Okay.
did it for a hackathon. It was about reporting animals. It was actually an idea from another developer who wanted to build something for abandoned animals in Romania, and I just started to think about a design, and I just started to develop it and participate with it in the hackathon, which I was second place, by the way. So it was very motivating, and I think these were my main projects. And but as a portfolio itself, I did not create like a web page for myself, but I only used GitHub. And you can really do many things with the GitHub README. I put my projects on there and my description about myself, and did not have any personal website or stuff like this.
Got it. Okay. And for Chris, for you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't create a portfolio website as well, but I utilize GitHub. GitHub is the first thing that I started to utilize when I started to learn coding, and I did few projects following online videos, and after that, as someone, I believe it was Roland, mentioned to me, tried to contribute to open source project. So I was looking for on GitHub for good first issue, and was like, oh, I know this, I can do that. So I was basically sending a message, could I do that? And they just assigned me a task to do, and it was simpler task that you could achieve in like half an hour. And so yeah, it was like from that I learned how to read others people code, and it was huge projects. So you just need to focus. You have general overview, and you just focus on the simpler tasks that you need to achieve. So yeah, I would say you utilize GitHub and find open source projects to contribute to, even if you don't feel you are ready, because you are.
Got it. Okay. How did you know you had learned enough as you were self-studying? How did you know you had learned enough on one topic to know that you were ready to move on to the next topic? Like, how did you test that for yourself? And I'll go Chris to start, and then Julia, if you have anything to add, we'd love to hear it.
You don't know. You never know, because I mean, any topic, it can be, you can dive deeper, deeper and deeper, and it can never stop. It's just when you learn something, try to utilize this knowledge to accomplish a task in, I don't know, in creating a website and such, or even webpack, as I mentioned. You want to stop using a create React app. You want to learn how to set up a webpack yourself. So do that, and once you do it, you just jump to another topic that interests you. And as I said, it's just too many topics to learn to. So you focus on what it's needed for the task in front of you, basically, and you just create for yourself. I want to build up, I mean, to-do list, everybody builds up, but something else, shopping list or something like that. I want to build that, and you just learn what is needed to do that, and then add extra features as you go along, and then decide on the next project.
Julia, anything to add there?
I once again totally agree with Chris, and some things are repetition, and you will know on your own after some while, and some things you only use once in a while, so you have to Google it anyway. So there's no shame in Googling. I do it all the time, and I think everyone does it. So get used to the thought that you will use Google anyway.
That's helpful. That's good advice. So Julia, since you started working as a developer, would you say it has negatively or positively affected your passion towards development, and why?
I would say it positively affected my passion for development. Since I started my job, I didn't think about it in the beginning, but it just came along that I got more active on Twitter. And so I started also doing additional stuff after work. Like getting more into accessibility, writing blog posts, writing a lot of blog posts, or also helping others get a job as well by reviewing their CV or creating, trying to create a website for others where they can see how I would set up a CV or when you would feel ready to apply for jobs, stuff like this. So I'm very into the community on Twitter, and this is do my job, I would say. So my job itself is kind of different because I work on a project in a team which has nothing to do with it, but it also made me more passionate about the community stuff after my working hours.
Excellent, thank you. Chris, how about for you? Have you, since you've started working, have you said it, would you say it has negatively or positively affected your passion towards development?
Thank you for repeating the question. It's hard. I mean, it's like sometimes it's just overwhelming. Like if I think it's like there's so much stuff to learn. There's like a Blazor and a new .NET frameworks come up so fast, and there is like another things that I am passionate about. They're changing as well, so it's hard to choose. But I think in general, definitely positivity is just choosing the thing that I want to focus on next. It becomes harder for me now.
Got you. Okay. Thank you. So let's see. We talked a little bit about this, but any best practices you would recommend for novice developers? So I guess that, so if I'm Mohammed, if I'm understanding your question correctly, is that I'm assuming that's going to be like for someone who's like new on the job, any sort of best practices that you would suggest for someone new on the job as a novice developer?
So I mean, if that's the question, I mean that means that like most of the companies have their own like best practices to follow on, and each company gonna have lots of documentation about how to name variables, what kind of styles you use in your project as CSS or SAS and such. And so that's what you're gonna learn on the job, because different companies can have different practices. But in general, just I believe it became like industry standard just to follow or try to follow Airbnb style guide that can give you advice how to write your JavaScript code. But in the end, you don't need to follow it. It's just an advice that you can stick to.
Got you. Thank you. We are at time, so I'm going to ask like one final question for you both. And actually, there's two questions that are kind of towards the end that have a little bit of similarity. So from either Nini or Nene and Megan. Basically, you've both touched on good work-life balance, but how often are you spending time learning new tech developments, since tech is always changing and growing? You know, do you code outside of work to kind of keep up with these changes, or are you able to keep up with it through your time at work?
I definitely code outside of work because I love doing that. And so at work, I use C#, and then now as JavaScript was my first love, and now I started to focus back on it and start to learn more advanced topics and such.
And Julia, how about for you?
I also code outside work because at work I cannot go that intense into accessibility. and or writing about accessibility. So it's more like about writing, I would say.
Mhm.
Stuff
Awesome.
like this. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you
And
both.
I mean,
Oh, sorry.
just one
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
to expand on this, like at work, we have something like learning hours. And I believe this is at every company, that you have some budgeted hours that you can do anything you want, basically. So yeah, you definitely gonna have time to learn at job, at work, and you don't need to spend more time outside of it. But like, if you are passionate about programming, you definitely gonna, like, you have this computer at your home. It's just, you're gonna use it.
I love that. Thank you. Your passion comes through. And I wanted to tell you, Chris, I know you're not looking at it, but you are getting some like serious shout outs in the comments right now of all the people that you helped. So Chris was, for those who don't know, Chris was a mainstay on CSX for a long time and in that community. And he put together a lot of like a very robust community within CSX, a study group that continues today, that has hundreds of people in it. And so Chris, we just, as a Codesmith person, I just want to thank you for that as well, because you know, you and your time and the people who are a part of that have really helped a lot of folks within CSX get to the levels where they're trying to go. And Julia, you are also getting lots of shout outs in the comments. So I hope you all have a moment. We'll try to capture them for you and send them to you so that you can see all these wonderful remarks from folks who have really appreciated your time and your effort and sharing your stories with us today. Chris, go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask for Julia's Twitter handle so we can all check it out.
Yeah, Julia, share with us.
Yeah, sure. It's Yuri Dev at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you both for your time, for your effort, for sharing your stories. We really appreciate it. Good luck with everything that you've got going on. And we wish you just continued awesome success. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Are we still live? Or is it?
Hold on 1 second.